Alex Pereira's rise to UFC champion status made many fighters feel they were being backstabbed by Dana White and the UFC brass to make way for an unproven kickboxing prospect. As one of the biggest names in the promotion and the former light heavyweight champion, Pereira ascended into superstardom and connected with fans across the globe without even being able to speak English. However, the language barrier hasn't prevented Pereira from making lifelong enemies through Portuguese trash talk, ominous tweets, disrespectful skits, and devastating finishes. So here's why UFC fighters hate Alex Pereira. Before Pereira even made his octagon debut, he was hated by one of the UFC's biggest stars, Israel Adesanya. In a strange way, Alex Pereira was never supposed to be UFC champion. A former alcoholic and aging contender, fighting his way through the middleweight gauntlet posed a supreme challenge.
Hey Adesanya, deixa eu te fazer uma pergunta. Você quer estar aqui realmente?
Caralho, I can't understand what this guy is saying, man.
Do you really want to be here?
I am here.
Despite having incredible accolades as a kickboxer, fighters were certain he couldn't develop his grappling enough to be competitive in the biggest fight promotion of the world. Even though Pereira defeated Adesanya twice in kickboxing, that's not actually where the hate originated.
He watches all my fights, and every time I fight, like clockwork, he'll try and put something out like, I beat this guy. But I've never ever watched any of his fights, ever. So at the end of the day, no one knows who the f he is.
Convinced Pereira was using his name to build fame and status, Adesanya developed a hatred for Alex that eventually reached its boiling point.
Face paint and a peacock helmet. This isn't kickboxing. He does have a lot of experience, and I've given him his respect, but this is my game, and I'm the game master, so tomorrow's game over.
After winning 3 straight bouts to start his UFC middleweight career, fans were left wondering if Dana White was fast-tracking Pereira to a title shot to set up one of the biggest fights in UFC history.
We have never seen 2 kickboxers matched up.
And when Alex eventually got that title shot, Adesanya felt Pereira didn't earn it through merit.
No, he should be grateful. He wouldn't be here without me. My run to the title was a lot more impressive than what he's done. So he should be grateful that he's here because of me.
Desperate for revenge against his lifelong nemesis, the stylebender finally had a chance to unleash his anger on Pereira in the octagon.
Second fight, I had him on skates, and I made a judgment call an error.
Down 0-2 in the rivalry, the stakes were higher than ever for Israel to permanently kill his demons, and he almost did.
Every time I fight, I risk losing, what you guys deem as the prestigious, which it is, the belt and all that shit.
Adesanya started their title matchup strong, outpointing Pereira from the outside and winning grappling exchanges. Unfortunately for Israel, the tides shifted and Pereira began to put Izzy on the back foot, eventually knocking out the stylebender on his feet. After losing 3 straight times, Adesanya's hate for Pereira grew even more. That was until they had the rematch where Izzy got the best of Pereira, knocking him out and putting a permanent end to the beef. Sometimes, hate and competition can make fighters grow closer. They begin to appreciate one another for bringing the best out of them, and today both fighters are on good terms.
Adivinhe, uma chance. Errado. Israel Adesanya. Chama.
Sometimes rivalries end on a good note, but that was far from the case with Pereira's next arch nemesis. Jamahal Hill has built a reputation as a confident but emotional fighter scrutinized by fans and media. Sure, UFC fans don't respond positively to Hill's belief in his skills, but he's also received backlash for his beef with Paul Craig and for a domestic incident with his brother, shedding a bad spotlight on the light heavyweight contender. When he stepped up to face Pereira, his overconfidence and borderline delusions may have finally caught up to him. Hill didn't originally hate Pereira, and in the beginning, the fight build-up was pretty respectful. But Jamahal came across as delusional to those who understood the gravity of Pereira's kickboxing pedigree. A traditional boxer who didn't rely on kicks or grappling, Hill, to an extent, was correct in believing he could at least match Poatan on the feet.
I don't think he's as fast as I am. I don't think he's used to the type of fight that I bring and the type of style that I bring. It's just like certain skills.
However, UFC fans continue to disrespect Hill's abilities and mock him for wanting to stand with the accomplished knockout artist. In the eyes of many fans, these theatrics made Hill seem more scared than anything.
I'm not talking about even just, I'm talking about striking.
Oh, you gonna knock him out?
Yeah, bro. I gotta shut him down at what he does the best.
Naturally, this gave Hill a chip on his shoulder, and he couldn't help but direct his hatred toward Poatan. Things began to reach a boiling point at the pre-fight press conference, where Hill brought a Poatan prop to further mock the Brazilian kickboxing superstar.
Write it down, take a picture, I don't give a f***. We getting it in. When you step in there with me, ain't nothing to talk about, ain't nothing to say, it's all right here and I'm on your ass.
When the fighters finally matched up for the light heavyweight title, it was time for Hill to back up all of his trash talk, but that's not what happened. Convinced he could beat Pereira on the feet, that's exactly what Hill elected to do, standing and trading with the superior striker. After a controversial timeout in the middle of the fight, Pereira caught Hill clean with a punch that turned his lights off. To make matters worse, Pereira struck a pose after knocking out Hill that Jamahal was sure to see when he finally got on social media.
It's a fight. At the end of the day, it is a fight. Anything can happen in a fight. Any given fight, crazy things can happen. On any given day, number 8 can become champ.
While Hill didn't particularly like Pereira leading into the fight, the rivalry escalated after their showdown even further. Pereira defended his title again when Hill was in attendance, and nothing is worse than seeing your enemy shine and receive praise. This is especially the case when you feel like nagging injuries and the referee negatively impacted your performance. Hill couldn't stop speaking about how the alleged groin shot cost him a chance at UFC gold. Fans grew tired of his excuses, but Hill pressed on, believing he was in the right for expressing himself and his grievances.
I'm literally only saying this to say what happened, to point out from my point of view what happened and what it is. I can, like, the fact of this, you can't accept the loss, he needs to cope. The hardest loss, the hardest thing that I ever had to eat in this game was whenever I lost my O to Paul Craig.
After his attempt to mock Pereira, the feud was further ignited by verbal sparring on Twitter. What happened next was the peak of their rivalry, and the level-headed Hill finally let his emotions get the best of him, carrying their feud to out-of-ring confrontations. Fighters generally hate each other from suffering controversial defeats and/or personal insults. But for the first and probably last time in UFC history, two light heavyweight titans ignited a rivalry for spiritual reasons. This is how Jiri Prochazka developed a deep hatred for Alex Pereira that quite literally resulted in magical warfare.
So everybody knows he's working with some shamanics, with some shamans. He believes in some like spiritual help from them.
Known for his ancient philosophies and unorthodox training methods, Prochazka has quietly built a revered but mysterious reputation among the UFC community.
That you were in darkness for 3 days, you were in a dark room for 3 days. Yeah. What does that mean? Like you're in total darkness for 3 days?
Yeah, it's all in darkness for 3 days, and there you can work then you can work with your demons.
Chief in importance for Prochazka is honoring the samurai in Bushido code and fighting with integrity.
The right way is the hardest way. This is the way of the warrior. How to use the body like a weapon. How to use the mind like a weapon. How to use all the powers, what you can use in your life like a weapon.
Jiri strongly believes in not relying on external influences to dictate the results of fights. Simply put, Prochazka wants a clean and fair fight, and he's willing to live and die with the results in samurai fashion.
I see all of the parts, stand-up, wrestling, ground game, everything like in one piece, and that give me my view, positive view, how to deal with that.
When the fighters finally met face-to-face in the octagon for the first fight, Pereira knocked out Prochazka in the second round. Convinced he was thorough in his physical and mental preparation for the bout, Jiri couldn't help but believe someone actually defeated him fair and square. A perfectionist, this left Prochazka wondering where he went wrong in his approach to the fight. This form of self-reflection and puzzling questions pushed Jiri to the point where he concluded the loss wasn't his fault, elevating his animosity for Pereira.
In the gym and train. Don't do another these bullshit, because with Pereira, I really get lost and I started to believe to another people, to not just myself, and this is the way to the hell.
In Prochazka's eyes, fighting with performance-enhancing drugs breaches the samurai code, but the idea of fighting with the help of spiritual forces is an even more supreme violation. And this supreme violation is the exact line he felt Pereira crossed.
He sees him doing the Sharman stuff or whatever, or Sharma, or I don't know what the it is, but he's like, yeah, no, he's using, this is unfair, he's using witchcraft or whatever, black magic, and it is just another reason that this fight is so awesome.
Leading into the rematch, Jiri was full of pent-up anger and aggression for Pereira.
He's doing these rituals before the fight. Everybody can feel that, what's around him and what's going on. So, and I think Alex can't fight without that. So, and that's something what he's using like normally in a fighting. And let's see. This is like right now. This is my challenge to him. If we can fight in a clear way in this case, yeah, to be not without like some another things, some whatever, but let the higher power be there in the cage to see who's the best.
It didn't help that Pereira was quite dismissive of Prochazka's claims. The last thing the samurai warrior wanted to hear is that the use of spiritual and magical forces was clean and fair play. However, part of the samurai code is to fight any and all challengers, regardless of suspected cheating.
Well, everybody have their own spirits. We're not only made of flesh and bone. I found mine. If he did not found his, or if he does not believe, it's not my fault.
For a chance to reclaim UFC gold, and with his pride on the line, Prochazka and Pereira fought again for bragging rights and to prove who was the more honorable fighter. And whether one believes spiritual forces play a difference in fights or not, Poatan came out victorious, finishing the samurai once again by second round KO. To this day, Jiri Prochazka still can't let go of these back-to-back losses, deepening his anger and malice for the alleged magical fighter.
I won a third fight with Alex Pereira, man.
Fighters generally have disdain for other fighters within or around their weight class. Khamzat Chimaev is known for his outspoken, arrogant, and brash personality. Fortunately for Chimaev, he can back it up in the ring as well with his dominant and aggressive wrestling style. What started off as a friendly call-out to embrace the competition of fighting quickly became a much more hateful saga between the much bigger Pereira and Chimaev. Chimaev largely relies on his out-of-ring intimidation tactics to get inside fighters' heads.
I'm a small brother. How to eat mush, brother? Eat banana, brother. Chocolate, brother. You sure?
I'll show you something. Let's go. I'll show you.
For the most part, fighters are defeated before they even step in the ring against Khamzat. When fighters don't bend the knee or fear his persona and menacing style, he takes it personally.
In the cage, when I look at him, he don't want to be there. I said that directly.
Not only did Pereira confront Chimaev with fearlessness in the media, but he dared to look down upon him and even diminish the attributes as a fighter. Pereira seemed to think Chimaev was all bark and no bite, and this fueled Chimaev to go on a streak of angry tweets and use personal insults in the media.
It was a done deal that he will be fighting for the title next. So Chimaev go and jump on the hype train again and like, I want to fight you and this and that. Again, he knew it was not going to happen because he was booked for a title fight. So he just basically doing that to promote himself.
Pereira lost the rematch against Adesanya and didn't address Khamzat directly, but instead moved up to the light heavyweight division. Sometimes being ignored is even worse than not getting a reaction, and no one likes to be ignored, especially the loudest guy in the room. To add fuel to the fire, Khamzat was denied a middleweight title shot, and his newest arch-nemesis moving up a division left him helpless and in no man's land. Unable to unleash his wrath on Pereira at middleweight, Chimaev pushed for the fight against Pereira at 205, very much against the wishes of Chimaev's team and the UFC brass.
Title run looking like? Do you want to clear out the middleweight division, or would you prefer to sort of go up to light heavyweight and challenge Alex Pereira?
Bro, I'm talking about 3 belts from a long time ago, so of course I want to go up.
Amidst visa issues and increasing health scares for Chimaev, it's becoming less likely the fight will actually happen, but nothing is certain with UFC matchmaking.
When you're sick, you can't think about like normally you does, you know, so a lot of weird things come in your mind.
After winning and defending the belt at light heavyweight, Chimaev couldn't help but observe the critical acclaim and praise Pereira received from fight fans around the world, while he desperately awaited a title shot in the division he actually competed in. Consistent with the theme of overlooking fighters, the next man who hates Alex Pereira also feels like he's being disrespected. What makes this saga different from the previously listed ones is the disrespect is much more dark and sinister. Magomed Ankalaev established himself as the #1 contender in the 205-pound division off an incredible 11-fight winning streak. The previously mentioned fighters hated Alex for various reasons, but they all acknowledged Pereira's warrior spirit and willingness to battle to prove who is best. A stylistic nightmare for Pereira on paper, Ankalaev didn't share the same sentiments about Pereira's bravery.
I think I done everything to deserve the next title shot. I'd like to talk to Alex. I'd like to tell him, hey, stop running away from me. We should fight. That's what everybody wants to see.
In fact, Ankalaev accused Pereira of being a coward who colluded with the UFC to lock him out of the title picture. Speculations arose that in an attempt to avoid a bad matchup, Pereira aimed for money fights and possibly a third belt. Nothing made Magomed more furious than being prevented from a shot at his championship dreams, especially after earning his stripes in one of the UFC's most competitive divisions. Fights against John Jones and Tom Aspinall were not only brought up in the backroom conversations, but Pereira made it a point to discuss the possibilities of these matchups in public, acting as if Magomed didn't even exist or hold claim to the title. While the UFC and Pereira's camp seemingly stalled Ankalaev out, the fight was eventually made in time period that inconvenienced Magomed the most, during Ramadan.
They don't eat. You don't eat until a certain time in the day. But whatever that time of day is, on fight day, you will be fasting. And there are some athletes where that would kill them.
He said the company tells me what to do, but I'm the one that asked for the fight. I said I want to fight in March, May, June, but I'm the one that came there and said I want to fight Ankalaev now. And he found out only because I asked to fight him.
As a devout Muslim, these underhanded tactics further infuriated Ankalaev. To be fair, it wouldn't be a stretch for Magomed to think the UFC didn't have his best interests in mind and Alex Pereira was being used as the pawn to get the job done. With that being said, the shady negotiating tactics and jabs at Magomed didn't stop there. Alex Pereira continued to poke the bear and even doubled down on antagonizing Ankalaev's eating habits during Ramadan, saying, quote, "I think he's using Ramadan as an excuse. Today I went to get my lunchboxes, the UFC lunchboxes, and there were 2 bags with several lunchboxes with his name on them and all with a set time. He's not fasting. He's deceiving people and telling them so he can have an excuse later." In an obvious attempt to get further under Magomed's skin, Pereira made a cheeky proposition ahead of their showdown.
Put your money where your mouth is. Let's do a $200,000 bet. The loser has to donate $200,000 to the winner's charity of choice. Now that sounds like a beautiful thing. It's also a really good way of trying to make a fool out of your opponent. Now, Magomed came back and he had a great response. He said, listen, as a Muslim, you know that betting is forbidden in Islam.
With bragging rights, pride, and UFC glory on the line, both fighters would step into the octagon to face each other. The best fights tend to be matchups with a lot of animosity in the build-up, and the back and forth between these fighters didn't disappoint. In the end, Ankalaev took the championship belt off of Pereira in a very closely contested bout, edging him 3 rounds to 2, with one judge even scoring the fight 49-46. And let's just say, Pereira wasn't happy with the outcome.
No, we followed our strategy. You know, we know that he puts people against the fence and he plays that game. But you know, giving him the win with a game plan like that, it kind of incentivizes people to do that against people. You know, people might say it's a boring style, but you know, when a guy gets a win doing that, it kind of makes people want to do that too.
Ankalaev fired back at Pereira, basically saying his words don't reflect what he's done in the cage.
Kind of some tight rounds to score as well. All three judges had you winning 2, 3, and 4. Man, at the end of 5 rounds, how confident did you feel that you had won the fight?
Yeah, you know, I was confident. I kept on moving forward. I kept pressuring him, and he kept on running away from me. You know, for 20 minutes, this guy was running away from me. And then I heard at the end of the fight, he was saying that, you know, he wasn't sure why the victory was given to me. Who's supposed to be given the victory? You know, I've been pressuring him the entire time. He was running for 20 minutes, and then he's wondering who's supposed to get the victory. Listen, I'm happy for a rematch if he wants a rematch, but then maybe in the rematch he could fight for real, not just run away the entire time.
And speaking about top of the food chain fighters in the UFC, to watch another breakdown of one of the most hated fighters on the roster, watch this video on Ilia Topuria.